we will call this meeting of the Water and Sewer Authority of Cabarrus County to order. The agenda before you, our first piece of business is oaths of office for State Hubbard, Mr. Hennett, and Mr. Ritchie.
Okay.
Andy, if you want to take it away.
All right. If you'll please stand and place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I
Do solemnly affirm
solemnly affirm
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of my office as Director of the Water and Sewer Authority.
of duties of the Director of the Sewer Authority of Cabarrus County.
Yes. So help me God.
So we don't know.
Each of you, your continued service on this board, vital part of it. Okay, let's go on to the unfinished business. We have, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of
So
June
moved, Mr.
15th?
Chairman.
A motion,
Second.
a motion second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Make that motion carries. All right, we have, a couple of reports.
As out with COVID and Thomas Hahn is going to take care of his,
We're glad Chad's not here.
Yeah,
I hope he feels better.
I'm not Chad Von Cannon. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I have a couple reports for you tonight. The first one being on a Rocky River plant flow update and capacity discussion. Just realized I've got this later. So first looking at monthly average flow, I wanted to give you a comparison of flow so far for this year versus flow for all of last year. The flow for this year is in kind of the orange or red line up there. The flow for this year is in the gray line. So as you can see, overall flows are up a good bit over last year to this point. We have seen periods in the past where, you know, flows will be up for 6 months and then we'll have a drier period for the other 6 months, that sort of thing. But did want to bring this to you and let you know. Also wanted to let you know the July 2023 flow data, we did include that. Obviously, we're still in the month of July, but that's just to illustrate we have had a little bit drier time since June in particular. And, you know, that had quite an impact on flows. Flows for Charlotte Water and for Cabarrus County member jurisdictions are up, you know, kind of in kind together. And, you know, we've seen those rainfall quantities kind of vary across different areas, particularly the event in mid-June was really kind of concentrated in eastern Mecklenburg and Rowan County, northern Cabarrus. And, you know, that had an impact in those areas, which leads to some overall impacts. I'll move on from that. Also showed, before we move on from this, the current permitted capacity of the plant is 26.5 million gallons per day. And our phase 3 permitted capacity, which we are working towards under construction right now, is 30 MGD. So I have those lines for comparison there. A few updates that we have been eyeing lately and we have been considering and working through. Senate Bill 673, the Wastewater Regulatory Relief Act. We've heard a lot about that. That involves a change to 75 gallons per day per bedroom. That's a reduction from 80 gallons per day per bedroom that we had previously. And it also allows one bedroom dwellings to be considered at 75 gallons per day. And that's a reduction from a 160 gallon per day per dwelling minimum before. So that had an impact for the areas that had the one bedroom houses in that flow allocation. Semi-annual project updates. So we do those twice a year, December and June. And we look at those to see what portions of each project have come online to the Rocky River plant and to Muddy Creek in the meantime, in those 6 months. So that allows a reduction of developer control capacity, which means an increase to jurisdictional control capacity that comes with those. The other updates we do just in December are the annual updates. Those include the semi-annual project updates that are described above and the adjustment for the actual calendar year average daily flow. The state allows us to adjust the calendar year flow for the calendar year and not to use a rolling average or something like that. So obviously, the Senate Bill 673, that will carry forward with that 75 gallons per day per bedroom. As far as the projects that were allocated in the past, that's kind of a one-time adjustment. So we did look at that. That gains us overall about 156 gallons per day, or 156,000, excuse me, gallons per day. Increase in jurisdictional control capacity within Cabarrus County. Charlotte Water has lagged a little bit with their updates, so these numbers are just for Cabarrus County. The semi-annual project updates in June, we've also just gone through as well, gathering data from jurisdictions. We are still working on a little bit of this, but we've got it almost finalized. So right now, the number is about 283,000 gallons per day, increase in jurisdictional control capacity. And so that's associated with projects that have come online, portions of projects that have come online, homes that have been built, et cetera, during that time frame. Obviously, we're not at the point for the annual updates yet, but that actual impact for those annual updates will be determined by flows for the remainder of this calendar year. And then again, for 2023 year to date, flows have increased somewhat over that same period in 2022.
And can you look, I'm sorry, can you look at past numbers for Charlotte and have an estimate, Thomas, as to what you think each of those two numbers are likely to be as far as Charlotte is concerned?
Sure, the semi-annual project updates are kind of tougher to predict for them because their pace of building projects picks up and slows down, just like kind of what we've seen here. Their flow allocation changes per Senate Bill 673 are going to be a little bit less because they will stay at that 65 gallons per day that they have per bedroom. Their only benefit will be from the 1-bedroom apartments.
Okay, yeah.
That sort of thing. So,
Okay, thank you.
otherwise they'll be the same as they were. But regardless, those are two separate pots. You know, the Cabarrus County overall capacity is not affected by theirs because they've got a certain contract amount.
When we look at the annual settlement, at the end of 23, were we looking at the 26.5, or we'll be looking at the 30?
So I believe we'll be looking at the 30 at that point. You know, with the interlocal agreements and all those things going through, we should be completely on the 30 page. Is my guess at that point.
Some months ago, Chad had brought up some reasons for our capacity and talking about the uncompleted projects that were still developing full capacity at that time. As far as a semi-annual update that we've just done, has there been a significant number of those units that have kind of been crossed off that list, or is it just a handful? Or
No, I mean, 283 gallons, 283,000 gallons per day is a good number of projects. You know, that's standing up here doing math on the fly, but you know,
the number I remember was just over 9,000 units
yes, sir. Right.
that were not completed, but we had given allocation.
Right. There is still a substantial number of houses and apartments out there and commercial and industrial developments that aren't complete that are on that list.
Plus, we're approving new ones.
Yeah.
Go along too, so.
Yes.
Right, well, my curiosity was kind of in relation to that 2-year time frame that we kind of, because some of those, as I recall, had been on the books for quite some time.
Right. Now, the 2-year time frame is just for them to start construction, or for them to have clearing underway and that sort of thing. Some of those projects go very quickly once they start construction. Others tend to drag on for, you know, quite a while. For example, an apartment complex will typically go up, be filled pretty quickly once they start construction. Single family homes, you know, we've got some that have been on there for years, like you said.
Is there any sort of, and I think I know the answer to this, Thomas, but like So you get to that point, they've moved dirt, they've done, and then all of a sudden, okay, they're good, and then that comes to a halt. Is that what you're talking about? Like some of the single families that they really kind of meet that 2-year time frame, and they've been, have kept the capacity?
We haven't seen so much of that as we have just projects being slow to build out overall. Typically, they're starting to build houses, they're working along the way, but some of these housing developments will just completely be up and filled a lot faster than others. And the apartments are a little bit simpler. Typically, they go up and, at least in more recent times, they've been full once they go up.
And have you guys always done this as a semi-annual, or was it annual before? And this is just a change because of the situation that we're in?
Sure. For the last 3 years, we have done these semi-annual updates. That we did kind of work this out with the state. Typically we would do an annual adjustment to kind of estimate that. And the semi-annual project updates do help us to recognize in June, what's happened during that 6 months.
Using the 160 gallons, that's about 1,800 dwelling units, I think, so. It's a pretty, if I'm doing the math right, but not a small number of homes that are coming online.
Sure. And so the total here is something over 400,000 gallons. Again, that's preliminary for an increase in jurisdictional control capacity. We'll have the final numbers. We'll have memos out to the member jurisdictions as we work through that. That said, we've allocated about 300,000 gallons of flow so far this year. So the numbers I show you on the next slide will reflect the 400,000 gallons total, plus or minus, subtracting the 300,000 gallons or so that we've allocated so far. So this slide just wanted to show a comparison of some different components of what makes up our total paper capacity. Up to this point, our paper capacity for Cabarrus County projects has been 20.5 million gallons per day. So that's 26.5 for the plant minus the 6 MGD contracted with Charlotte Water. Following the completion of the phase 3 upgrades, and again, like Michael said, towards the end of this year in terms of allocation, we'll be at that next tier for phase 3, which will be 30 MGD overall plant capacity and 22.6 MGD capacity for Cabarrus County specifically. The components that we add up to get to that line consists of that average daily flow for the previous calendar year. That's the actual average daily flow. Developer controlled capacity. So again, the list of projects that's allocated but haven't come online yet. And then the balance of that being jurisdictional control capacity. So we take 20.5, we subtract the number in orange and the number in blue, and then what's left at the top is what's remaining available to allocate. So you can see that's had a slight increase, which is good overall from December 22 to June 2023. It's actually a good bit bigger than it looks there because there have been those 300,000 gallons or so of capacity allocated already this year. If any of these numbers change, for example, if the 2023 average daily flow is higher, that could eat into the other numbers towards the end of the year. So for those December updates, that's when that number in orange is recognized. Again, that orange number will change once per year. The other numbers will change once every 6 months with those semi-annual updates. I know this is a lot in this one. Any questions on this one before we move on? Okay. I've got a conclusion slide and we can come back if desired. So a summary, overall for the presentation, again, flow impacts year over year. Flows at the Rocky River plant have increased so far for calendar year 2023. Continuation of inflow and infiltration, evaluation and rehab efforts is vital. We've been working on that steadily over the past several years. We know that many of the jurisdictions have been involved with those efforts as well. If we can do anything to help with that or, anything like that, we are happy to, and we continue our efforts and we encourage those efforts to continue for each member jurisdiction. Precipitation and groundwater trends do impact flows to the Rocky River plant, as we've discussed before. As far as Senate Bill 673 and the semi-annual project update impacts, Cabarrus County project level updates are being finalized as we discussed. And we'll have a few further mid-year updates for overall flows to the plant, those from Charlotte Water, and then their project data and their Senate Bill 673 impacts that they have as well. Future updates, we will do the December updates will be our next semi-annual round at least. And those will include adjustment for actual 2023 calendar year flows and projects that come online during the second half of this year. And following finalization of those interlocal agreements, we'll move to that 30 MGD value instead of 26.5 for those overall values. I'm happy to take any questions. This is the end of the presentation.
Any additional questions for Thomas? Good update.
Thank you.
All right. Am I gonna give us a treatment plan?
I'll do that. All right, so the Rocky River plant expansion update for July. Moving through that, we have, or the contractor has continued installation of 42-inch pipe from the EQ influent meter vault to the equalization basin. 42-inch pipe is impressive to watch it go in. It's quite a thing. They've completed shotcrete placement for the NEF tank. That's the interior of those two concentric tanks. And they've begun shotcrete placement for the equalization basin, which is the exterior of those two tanks. They've continued installing air piping and pipe supports at aeration basin 6, along with installing influent piping to that aeration basin. They've continued work for the effluent flume. They've done a good bit of work on the blower building, roofing, framing, and they've started siding this week for that. They've continued trim work and started electrical for the maintenance canopy, and they've completed the excavation for the gravity thickeners. And as always, they have continued, and we continue with them to work to mitigate those potential issues with sourcing equipment for phase 3 and electrical upgrades. Electrical equipment tends to be, or continues to be, kind of the main area of focus there. So a few update pictures. Again, this is the tank within a tank. So in June, the picture we brought to you showed the interior tank and kind of the shell of the exterior tank coming together. They have since completed that interior tank, and the picture on the right is of the exterior tank. So in total, these are 5 million gallons in volume. Aeration basin 6, it's hard to get a good picture of what's going on there because it's just kind of massive. So a little bit of a panoramic view here showing the air piping going in. They do have handrail on site as well, so they're starting to get into more of the mechanical and the practical components that will make this thing work, which is exciting. Aeration basin 6 as well. These are the influent pipes coming out of an existing box over to the aeration basin. A lot of times we don't think about the buried work that makes all this come together, but this has been some of their most intricate work they've had to do. Lower building, you can see the siding panels going on. As of this afternoon, they've moved a good bit further than that. So it's exciting to see those going up and that building being enclosed. We do expect those blowers to come from Finland, I believe, in the next couple weeks to be here on site. Gravity thickeners. We don't have gravity thickeners to show, but we do have the completed excavation. So that's for one of the 2 gravity thickeners. And then kind of over to the left will be the other gravity thickener. The work plan for the next month, that 42-inch pipe, they've got a long way to go with it to get over to the EQ basin. Thankfully, once they cross the road, they get out of some of the conflicts with existing facilities, some of that thing, sort of thing. They are going to continue work at the EQ basin and NEF facility, continue pipe supports, air piping at aeration basin 6. Continue work at the effluent flume at the maintenance canopy. They plan to start piping and concrete placement at the new gravity thickeners, so filling in the excavation I showed you. Continue buried piping installation between our new and existing facilities. Finish up on the blower building, get the blowers into that building, and then to continue their electrical terminations for the medium voltage as well.
So the blowers that are going in the blower building supply the air for the aeration basin number 6?
Yes, sir. And eventually, we will add blowers in phase 4 that will supply air to all of the aeration basins. The other remaining aeration basins are going to be retrofitted as part of phase 4 to take diffused air instead of pure oxygen.
But those blowers will be in addition to these.
Yes, sir. We're getting, I believe, 3 to begin with. One of the 3 will be a swing spare. So it can be used for either the new aeration basin or the existing ones. And then we'll be getting, I believe, 4 other blowers with phase 4, but they will all go in the same. This building is sized for all of those blowers.
I remember there being quite a few on that original list, and pretty impressive when there's 6 or 8 and they're 300 horsepower or
Right.
something like that, you know.
These are high-speed turbo blowers, so they're really efficient. They just do a good job at what they do in kind of the minimum footprint, so we're excited to be getting those.
When you look at the original PERT chart, are we on schedule, ahead or behind?
Sure, so right now, they're saying August of 2024. So I believe we've shared spring to summer 2024 pretty consistently. Did look at their latest schedule update today, and that was based on information they had in June. And they're still tracking for that August timeframe.
Good.
Electrical equipment is just, those are the things we're keeping an eye on. I'll put it that way. We had some electrical equipment arrive at the site and didn't have a couple breakers in it. The breakers are coming, they'll put them in, but the electrical equipment manufacturers are a challenge to deal with right now.
That's the same song everywhere.
Yes, sir, it is. Crowder we have multiple contractors, different places, different projects who are dealing with electrical equipment. We have been very impressed with Crowder's persistence at keeping on and keeping with the electrical manufacturers. They have been very good at doing it.
Other questions for Thomas? Okay, thank you, Thomas. Good report. All right, we will open up the floor for public comments. Back here, like to speak to the board. Hearing none. I have a motion to go into closed session under GS 143, 318.11, A1, A3, and A6. So moved. Motion.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?